Hi, my name is Dr. Daniel Fox, licensed psychologist in the state of Texas and an expert in the area of personality disorders. And today I wanted to talk about mistrusting and misunderstood the paranoia or paranoid issues that sometimes accompany those with BPD traits or BPD. And what we're going to talk about is sort of this paranoia. We're going to put it in this shell, so to speak, of paranoia. Now, paranoia, of course, is an extreme term. And remember, though, all the terms, and even BPD itself, is on a spectrum. So there are degrees. So it doesn't mean like paranoid schizophrenia. That's not what we're talking about. There is a paranoid personality disorder that we'll get to in this video that we will talk about. So when we talk about paranoia, we're talking about sort of fear of being harmed, hurt, betrayed, abandoned, disrespected. And these are common feelings and thoughts and concerns and worries of a lot of folks. Those along the BPD spectrum, I've seen it very common, of course, in those individuals as well. So this video, certainly we're going to direct it towards those with BPD, but I think there's a benefit for those that may feel that they may have issues of paranoid personality disorder, which is something that we'll get into in this video as well. So hopefully this can provide some insight for you and some greater understanding about concerns and fears to a point where it reaches this level of paranoia. And we'll talk more about that. So it has been found to be pretty prevalent, actually, in those with BPD. Now, paranoid personality disorder can co-occur with borderline personality disorder. And again, as I mentioned before, so in this video, what we're going to talk about is the paranoid personality disorder aspects as it relates to BPD. And I'm going to give you some suggestions on how to manage it to try to help you. I like to give tools that can help you. So if you enjoy the video, please subscribe. If you really enjoy it, share it, send it out to the world. That's always nice. And as always, I hope you find a lot of utility in this, and let's get into it. Okay, so let's talk about what some of the criteria is for paranoid personality disorder. Now, the first criteria we're going to talk about, this is that these people, they suspect without sufficient basis that others are exploiting, harming, or deceiving them. And remember, the key component here is that there isn't a sufficient basis for it. So there's no concrete evidence. Remember, it's good to always try to prove your thoughts, because that BPD can kind of drive you to these aspects of paranoia and fear and issues, and it can distort your BPD lens, can distort how you see the world and how you interpret information. So that's the first one. Let's talk about the second one. So these people are preoccupied with unjustified doubts about the loyalty or trustworthiness of friends and associates. So people that you're close to, you doubt their sincerity. You doubt if they're loyal to you. Are they talking behind your back? Are they planning to hurt you? So you start to spend a lot of time and energy into finding alternative evidence to prove that they're out to harm you, that they're out to hurt you. Additionally, there's a reluctance, and this is another criteria, is that there is a reluctance to confide in others because of an unwarranted fear that the information will be maliciously used against you. So you don't open up to people because you fear that it'll be used against you. Okay? Now remember, these criteria that we're talking about, if you, maybe you're like, oh, I do that, and it's one of them is not enough. So we need several in order to qualify. And it's more likely to have paranoid traits than it is to have paranoid personality disorder. So it's important to remember that. I just want to throw that in as we're going through the criteria, because I know that a lot of folks with BPD and BPD traits, that they're often reluctant to confide in their therapist, their mental health provider, about BPD. They may say, well, I think I meet criteria, but if I tell him or her, they may not see me anymore. And that can sound like what we're talking about. It's this fear that if I tell them, they're going to kick me out of treatment, they won't want to work with me anymore. And I'm not saying that's not a justified fear, that there aren't people, mental health providers, who are reluctant to treat those that are along the borderline spectrum. I'm not saying that, but you have to find the evidence that shows that. Is there evidence that alludes to that? Okay, so it's important that we're always looking for evidence. Now, the next one is that these folks, that they read hidden, demeaning, or threatening meanings into benign remarks or events. So they interpret information that it is directly to them and harmful. Now, another one is that they persistently bear grudges. So unforgiving for insults or injuries or even slights. Somebody, maybe they make a joke at your expense and you're out and everybody's kind of goofing around, but then somebody makes a joke and you take it very personal because maybe it hits your core content. And when it hits your core content, that really kind of sets you off, right? It hits your emotional buttons and it triggers you and sets you off. So you hold on to these grudges and it's hard to let it go, and you sit and you steam on it, and you start to believe, oh, this person wants to hurt me, this person is out to take my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my significant other, out to take away things that I value. So you start to see that other individual as harmful. Now, the next component is that you perceive attacks on your character or reputation that are not apparent to others, and you're quick to react angrily or counterattack. Now, another video that I will be putting out soon is how to diffuse explosions. And this particular aspect, this paranoia aspect, this paranoid personality disorder component that we're talking about. So this is this quick to respond. So you have hurt me, slighted me, and I'm going to have a massive reaction of rage and anger and frustration and all these other things. And all of this hate and malice just pours out, and it creates this tunnel vision, right? And this tunnel vision is, I see only but red for you. And red, that statement means that I only see hate, I only see betrayal, I only see the harm that you want to do to me. So I am going to do that to you first. So it's important to remember, and we're going to talk about how to deal with this in a second, that there is no evidence that this person wants to hurt you. Maybe it was a joke. There are appropriate ways to engage with that person. If someone's hurt your feelings, if you feel slighted by someone, there's a way to engage with them assertively in order to deal with it. I do have other videos on being assertive and managing issues like this. And as I mentioned, I'll have a video coming out. The next video that I do, that will be on how to diffuse explosions. Okay, but let's get back to what we're talking about. So the next one, the last component, and this is that you have recurrent suspicions without justification regarding fidelity of spouse or sexual partner. Now remember, right? So you feel like that this person is cheating on you, that they're doing something behind your back, but there's no evidence. Did you notice that as we went through all of this criteria, what is the one common theme through all the criteria? That is, there's no evidence to support it. And it's really important to do this, to look for evidence in the environment. And a lot of folks with BPD, that they have this BPD lens. And this is something I talk about in my workbook. I talk about it in many other videos as well. I even have a whole video on it. I'll put the link here if you want to learn more about BPD lens and how it distorts your perception of information and others, and it feeds your BPD and keeps it in place. But it's important to realize that if you have a tendency to skew towards the negative, you have to challenge that. And you have to say, okay, I'm going to be an experimenter in my life. I'm going to see, okay, what is the value and balance of what this person is saying? They've slighted me. I think they're cheating on me. What is that? Right? How can you assertively and accurately approach that situation and investigate it? Okay. So we're going to go on a little bit more. So BPD and paranoid personality disorder, now they often occur together. So it's not uncommon, as I mentioned before a few times, that to have paranoid traits associated with borderline personality disorder. Now, many individuals with BPD have a tendency to see others and their negative attributes and vulnerabilities. So they tend to see folks as wanting to hurt them. They tend to see folks that they want to do them harm. And a lot of times that's a protective measure. And it's understandable because a lot of folks that are along the borderline spectrum, not all, but a lot of folks that are along the borderline spectrum have been betrayed by others, have been hurt by others that were supposed to love and care for them and have patience and compassion for them, but they didn't. And they were malicious, harmful, hateful. That's understandable. But that doesn't mean everybody is going to be. But it requires a lot of work to see that differently, to allow people that aren't going to hurt you in your life. So, and we can't go into all the details because there's so much involved. That's why treatment takes so long, because it's about changing that core content and changing the paranoid personality disorder aspects, if you have them, or those traits, or those fear based concerns. It's changing that and doing it differently for yourself. So it's understandable to be vigilant for being hurt, jilted, or left, or abandoned. It's understandable based upon their experience about how that manifests in their life today. So a lot of folks with BPD, they're hypervigilant to words, speech, behaviors that indicate harm is coming their way, right? Now, there can be many reasons, just as we talked about, this can be present. And the difference between vigilance and paranoia, it's not all bad to be hypervigilant. It's not all bad to be vigilant for those who may harm you. But when it starts to impact adding healthy others to your life, when it starts to impact allowing others to help you, when it starts to impact you having a caring relationship because you're always doing tests, you're always testing your significant other. Oh, I'm going to do this to see if he or she really loves me. And that's really difficult, because most of my clients and folks who I know who do those tests do them to failure. And they do them to failure for the other person. So, okay, you pass this test, but there's only one reason why you pass the test. I'm going to give them another test and another until they fail. And then when they fail, they say, see, you were out to hurt me. So that justifies that BPD lens. That justifies that paranoid content. So then you close up even more and you block out people that could potentially be positive and help you. So let's talk about doing some reality testing to challenge that paranoia. Okay, so step one, what we want to do is we want to clearly define what you're worried about. Okay, so let's say that someone is going to leave you. Right? What are those components? What if they do leave you? What does that mean? Right? So you want to, what evidence, step two is what evidence do you have that he or she is going to leave you? You want to challenge that. Clearly define what your worry is, step one. Step two, which is what evidence do you have that he or she is going to leave you? Now, if they leave you, what does that mean for you and your world? It's pretty likely, it's highly likely, I like that better, right? It's highly likely that you lived your life without this person in it. If they leave you, you can live your life again. And these issues of abandonment, and I do have a video on abandonment, I'll put the link here, and this abandonment issue can sometimes be so core to those along the borderline spectrum that it feeds the surface structure of paranoia. So it's important to recognize, but I wanted you to challenge that. I want you to think, you know what? I was without him or her before. I can be without him or her again. That removes the need to be in that relationship. You want to add the want to be in that relationship. The want gives you the flexibility to be yourself, to assert your needs, your wants, your interests. It gives you the drive to add you to the relationship instead of being passive. And then once you're passive for so long, you build it up, and then you explode. And that's when all this BPD content comes out. These maladaptive patterns come out and all of these other issues. But we've got two more steps. So that was step two. Now, step three is what evidence do you have that he or she is going to leave you? So we want to find evidence in the environment. We want to find evidence. Remember, when we went through all that criteria, all of it was what? That there's nothing to substantiate that paranoia and fear. So we want to go through. So what evidence do you have that he or she is going to leave you? So you want to find evidence for your fear and what you're worried about. Okay? And then you want to define it and then challenge it. And then the very last step is when you re-examine this fearful thought using that reality testing that we just talked about, how do you feel and what do you think? Take a minute. How do you feel and what do you think? Are you scared? Are you more calm? Are you more centered? How do you feel? And then process that feeling. Think about, what is that feeling? Where is it coming from? Is it coming from core content of abandonment, emptiness? Maybe you've been selling yourself out to be in a relationship, which has always created all this fear. Maybe there are other issues that have been feeding this fear, whatever it is. But it is about re-examining it, looking at it, and then assess how you feel. And if it sounds like I'm being repetitive, there's a reason why I'm doing that. It's because we want to build this skill of challenging yourself to accurately interpret information that goes against that BPD lens, that goes against that, that tendency to be driven towards paranoia. Okay? And then remember, insight is empowerment. It's building insight to help you to do it differently. Just real quick, because I feel like that as I went through these 4 steps, maybe it was a little kind of all over. Step 1, clearly define what you're worried about. Step 2, we want to look for evidence, right, about your fear. Step 3 is what evidence that it's going to follow through, and what does that mean for you. Step 4, re-examine how you feel now that you've added in the concrete evidence in the environment. A lot of times after I do this, like with a client, a lot of that anxiety goes down, a lot of that fear goes down, but they get this greater sense of empowerment. And that's what I hope that this does for you. And I'll leave the steps, I'll put them in the comments section, and thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope you find this video of great value. So please subscribe and take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.